These liberal ideas are not new, and they haven't worked. So why would they work again? I don't know.
The idea itself is fundamentally flawed, in my personal opinion.
I mean, why not establish a new country? Why not create a new set of rules? Why are we so set on the rules that we play by right now? But if you want to do something like this, use some credible people.
If you look at the most successful countries, they are the ones who usually tax a lot and have a good taxing system.
Tax avoidance, money laundering, that's what it will be useful for.
There is a risk that this country can become tax heaven and a place for criminal organizations.
I do think that you do need to have a clear strategy in place instead of simply saying that our main exports will be financial services and beer. Even though the beer might be great, but...
We'll get to beer very quickly, I promise you. Welcome everybody, I'm Stephen Sackur, the presenter of the HARDtalk show on the BBC, but more importantly, a very regular visitor to St. Gallen. It is a great pleasure for me to be back at the Symposium. And today we have a fabulous guest. It's going to be, I promise you, a fascinating session, and it may take us in directions we can't even imagine. The whole theme this year, of course, is about disruption, and this particular half hour or so that we've got ahead of us is going to be considering what disruption means in terms of our understanding of what a nation state is. What is a country? I mean, we all think we know what a country is, but do we really? And is our vision of what it is in the future going to change radically? It seems to me it's an interesting moment, given that we've had a lot of political disruption in the last months and years. Disruption delivered by politicians such as Donald Trump, such as the Brexiteers in my own blessed country, such as right now Marine Le Pen in France. At least she's trying very hard to disrupt. But these are disruptors who have a very traditional vision of what the nation state is. Indeed, in many ways, they look backwards, not forwards. They talk about borders, they talk about control, they talk about the land, they talk about protectionism in ways which are very old school. They are not forward-thinking. Whereas this guy sitting here is very different. He is, and some of you may not even know this, he is one of the most senior statesmen visiting St. Gallen, because I'm delighted to say we have a president in our midst. But you know what? I'm going to refrain from calling him Mr. President until the end of the interview, and then I'll decide whether he's worthy of the title. So let's see how that goes. But let me introduce him. He's Vít Jedlička. Now, for those of you who do not know Liberland, Liberland is his creation. It is, one has to say, more of a virtual than a real state at this present moment. He claims title to a small corner of territory in a little bend in the Danube River between Croatia and Serbia. It is land that is, frankly, in limbo. Neither state, neither Serbia nor Croatia, seems to much want this little patch of marshy, boggy terrain. There is one, I don't want to make it sound too attractive because you all want to go visit, but there's one building which has been derelict for 30 years. There is one, we can call it a road, but it's not really a very good road. And you can get to and fro across the Danube River from the Serbian side, but only if the Croats don't arrest you. So that's the little bit of territory that he calls Liberland. So let's get to the point. Let's start talking to him. But before we do, give a very warm welcome to President Vít Jedlička. Now, Vít, for 2 years you have been president of Liberland, elected with 2 votes, none opposed, so you had the same sort of 100% result triumph that the North Korean president would expect.
Not really. It's actually 66.6% because I abstained in that vote. And I was also a citizen at that time. So
right. So let's get straight to it. My kids used to love playing a game called SimCity, where they, on their computers, could build a virtual city, and they could sort of pay virtual money to acquire new properties and build new and exciting things. You're just playing a very sophisticated and glorified game of sim country, aren't you?
Yeah, well, we're actually building a real country, but we're having a lot of fun with it.
But it's not real in the sense that it doesn't actually exist.
It does exist. You can go there, you can visit Liberland, you can see the government, you can you can see that we have 80 diplomatic offices around the world. There is something which is called duck test for countries. So if you act like a duck, make the same sound like a duck, walk like a duck, you are basically a duck. And this is a criteria which I think we are fulfilling by now.
Yeah. As was once almost said in American politics, I know ducks, and you, Mr. President, are no duck. Because if I were to go to this patch of boggy marshland, number one, I'd probably be arrested by the Croats, because you've been arrested at least twice trying to get to your own territory. No human being actually lives there. There is no building apart from this one derelict shed. And the truth is, you're just playing a very successful game, which is interesting and challenging for all of us, and we'll talk about the ramifications of it. But more than anything else, it's about self-promotion, isn't it?
Not really. I mean, like the whole thing was very serious from the beginning, and Croatia called Liberland a joke at the very beginning. They don't call it a joke now, I can tell you. And they are very serious, actually, in not claiming this piece of land and protecting it. And I think we actually have the best protected borders in the whole Europe by now. There is not a single refugee that could make it over Liberland-Croatia borders. But on the other hand, you know, the great thing that nobody a part of Liberland claims this piece of territory gives us a fair decent. That was the last piece of the puzzle that we needed to build a country, and we do have that.
What's the point? Let's have you explain very briefly, if you can, what you are trying to do by building this mostly virtual, but you would say it has some practical, meaningful, real impact in the world.
Like,
what's the point?
I mean, like, you're talking about virtual, but honestly, we heard President of Estonia, her great speech yesterday, and what they're doing is building up a virtual e-residency. They want to make sure that if somebody invades Estonia, that the whole government and the whole country will work without any problems as well. So, you know, this notion of being virtual is pretty much the trend now. And of course, we are building up the best IT systems. We actually have a large conference in Prague this weekend, which you can join if you were there. We are working with the best technological startups. We want to have the best company registry in the world. And so all of these things which you call virtual are actually something that create a country.
You claim to have around 500,000 people who have contacted you, presumably online mostly.
It was much more that contacted us. Those people actually filled the registration. So
right.
We received, just the first week alone, we got 250,000 emails from people that we could never read, which was pretty staggering.
Right. So these people, they say they want to apply for citizenship of Liberland.
Yep.
What do you get with your citizenship?
Well, you become a member of a country which aims to be the freest country on the planet. We want to be the leaders. It's a great social hub. I don't think that you can actually join any other organization that would put people from so many different fields together. From the blockchain technologies, from the artificial intelligence, people that are into construction, they're into investments. We've got the whole spectrum of the society from all countries in the world. There is not a single country. We even have one person from Vatican.
What's he called? Francis? I mean, we know there are a lot of gullible people in the world. Apparently there are people who, when they get emails from Nigeria saying, you've just won the lottery and I would like your bank account so I can put $10 million in it, they immediately email back and say, yes, please, and here are my details. I mean, you're tapping into that same sector of the global population that is extraordinarily gullible. And frankly, I am a skeptic. You may well be wanting to take these people for a ride. I can think of all sorts of ways in which you can monetize this idea of Liberland. Presumably, you have to pay a fee to become a citizen. Presumably, when you're talking about setting up a tax haven with voluntary tax, which you don't have to pay if you don't want to, there'll be a fee for registering for that. I can imagine this is a great little business that you're operating.
I mean, like, take a look at the countries. It's crazy what they're doing. They actually take more than 40% of what you earn, and they are not asking you if you want to pay it or not. And they really use it for whatever purposes they want. I mean, in Czech Republic, it's getting ridiculous. The finance minister recently, it was found out that he built his own private mansion for $2 million. He also doubled the amount of subsidies, so he's the biggest benefactor of the EU subsidies in the whole country, and nobody really bothers, which bothered me actually. That's I was thinking, is there any way out of these systems where people are supporting the political class, which takes away the most from them?
Well, if it bothered you, why didn't you do something about it by playing an active role in Czech politics? Because I know you tried, but you didn't get very far, so then you sort of opted out and created a fantasy land. Why not, if you're a real Democrat, why not try to change things in your own country?
First of all, I'm not a Democrat per se. We have something like a double democracy, and I think it's a much better system than a democracy. And you can see yourself that the democracies in Europe, especially, are eating themselves. It's a system in which majority can make you stand on the head. They can tax you, they can take your property away. It's a very strange concept. That's why we actually came up with the system of double democracy, combining the best elements of, let's say, corporate-style business with the best elements of republic. And
sorry, so as president, you're saying Liberland is not a democracy, not in any sense.
It is a double democracy. We have taken this element of public veto from Switzerland, which is a very interesting concept. All of you that you're Swiss, you probably take part in that. I think it's a great democratic aspect, that majority can stop any kind of decision that the leadership of the country wants to push in. So that's why we call it double democracy. It is a corporation which is corrected by the majority. And I think it's very much the future of the way we are going to govern our societies.
Just to call me old school, if you like, but normally in a country I expect physical infrastructure. I expect residents. I expect human beings who actually live on the territory of that nation state. Now you've got this bit of marshland, riverside bog in...
3 times larger than Monaco, come on.
Well, okay, it's not quite got the infrastructure and the money of Monaco yet, but I guess you're working on that. But paint me a picture. If let's just assume that you are going to fulfill your dreams. In 50 years, do you actually want to build a physical city there?
Yes, we are very, very sincere about that. We actually have a lot of architectural studios. The leading one is HARDtalk, which helps us with the urban planning. And I'm very happy that Patrick Schumacher, the CEO of that company, is the leader of free market urban planning, which very much fits in the concept with Liberland.
Right.
I gave you the brochure. You can see, and of course anybody can. At the brochure, you can see.
I think this, ladies and gentlemen, is what's called an infomercial. It's where we.
You've got all these different. We actually had 85 architectural studios that applied to be part of the architectural challenge of Liberland, and we received some very nice results. You can see them online, or you can see them in our brochure.
Right. Now, in terms of what you would offer your citizens, I've talked about the ways in which I can see you monetizing this, charging fees for all sorts of things. In return for being citizens of Liberland, obviously that's some sort of contract between the government and the people. What do you offer them? Healthcare? Do you offer them defense and security and protection? Do you offer them welfare? What's your vision of what a state should do?
Actually, Liberland is limited very much only to taking care of security, justice, and diplomacy. And that's our constitution stands that Liberland itself cannot do anything apart of that. So that means there are no laws about marriage. There are no laws about healthcare. There are no laws about education. And we are very proud of that. Liberland will have 0 public education. And we believe that's the future of education anyway, because...
You mean the future of education is not to have any?
No, it's not really. I mean, like, what kind of school are you sending your kids to? I mean, is it a public or private school?
Well, that's for a Brit, that's a really interesting question.
I mean, like, I'm like serious. Like everybody's smiling about having just private schools, but whenever you ask anybody, they're sending their kids.
My kids have experienced state schools, he says, using very careful language, and they are certainly experiencing state universities. Yeah. And for me, it seems to be one very important function of government to deliver education for the people.
I think it's terrible
It's part of the
business,
contract,
honestly.
which involves paying taxes and getting services.
Like, why would you pay the taxes to the country to pick up the education for you? Why wouldn't you pay directly to the university? It doesn't really make sense. I think it's one of those mental blocks that we are building ourselves, that we really have to pay the state to choose the right university for my kid. And honestly, I don't really understand where that came from, but it's deeply embedded in our nature.
And this is interesting because we're getting a little bit more sort of ideological and philosophical here. The tendency in politics has always been to create a spectrum from far left to far right and try and place people on it. These days, that increasingly seems irrelevant. There are other ways of looking at politics. You can look at it from the point of view of a spectrum from focus on nationalism to globalism, or you could look at it from sort of liberalism to authoritarianism. Describe for me, Mr. President, I'm going to go there for now, your politics. What spectrum do you recognize and where are you on it?
It's very much the spectrum of zero government to full government, which means something like North Korea, or let's say 80% of that is North Korea, to places like Liechtenstein, where state is 20%, 25%. And we want to be the leaders in the spectrum on the side of little government. And we are actually, what is our main mission? And we haven't really promoted that yet. But what we want to do, we actually want to show that even those core services that are provided usually by state, that is security, justice, and diplomacy, can be very easily provided by private sector. And we are actually starting an alliance with Swarm City, which is based here in Switzerland.
Not SimCity, that's...
No, that's Swarm City, but it's a similar concept. The fact that you can actually Uberize even services like police, like justice, and you might end up with much better results than the states are usually providing.
Seems to me that what you are doing, and forgive me for saying it, I don't think there is one chance in a million that I'm ever going to come to visit Liberland and enjoy the fruits of your construction and your architectural vision, and I'm not going to be staying in the Grand Hyatt Liberland.
That would be such a shame.
Yeah, well, I know. but my loss, not yours. But even if I'm a skeptic on that front, I can see that because you are thoughtfully exploring what our digital age offers us in terms of new thinking about the relationship between the individual and the state, I can see that you represent some kind of fundamental challenge to the way the states work today. Do you believe that our notion of what a state is and how the international community organizes itself in terms of sovereign nations who recognize each other and do sort of multilateral deals between themselves, is that dying?
Well, I honestly believe that there is a complete switch of a paradigm which many people don't see yet. And the rejection of Bitcoin is widespread, as I understand, on this conference. But I can tell you, it has just risen to $1,550. It's an all-time high. The capitalization is $25 billion. The people that have invested in the early days in Bitcoin are terribly wealthy. And Liberland is actually mining power for Bitcoin. And where I see Liberland is that we are actually bringing the future in terms of the technology to a present day. We are some kind of a hub which basically is a country which is bringing those technology to the people today. And the fact is that the companies that are now based on blockchain, for example, the Swarm City or the DAO, or other companies that are running on Ethereum, which is, by the way, something very interesting that you should look into, they don't
I'm trying to look wise here, but there are some things you're talking about. I have no idea.
They really don't need a state, and that's the funny thing, you know. The future,
well, that's the point,
the future doesn't need a state, and we have to deal with it. There will be much better way to manage reputation than the state can provide. Much better way to run justice system and, for example, notary system than the regular state can provide. And of course, states will still be there.
The one thing you're ignoring in all of that is human nature. I mean, because you are so excited about what the digital age offers, it seems to me you're forgetting the way human beings actually work. And surely the lesson of our politics today is that most human beings still actually identify with a place, with a sense of shared identity with others, as against, other countries, other peoples, and you, in a way, are the ultimate globalist at a point where globalization is, to many people, something of a threat rather than a positive.
That's not really true. I really believe in the healthy nationalism. I really believe that the best nationalism that you can have is when you are in a group with the people that have the same idea how your government should be running. And I really love Liberland. I love every single inch of it. I think.
Don't be ridiculous.
But it is a nice.
You can't even go there. Every time you go there, you get arrested.
But I mean, like, talk to Dalai Lama about this. I mean, like, it's not the point. The point is that, of course, sooner or later, Liberland will be based in that territory. There is actually nothing in the world that can stop that notion. The self-determination of people is very strongly embedded in the international law, and of course, we are exploiting this to the full potential.
Well, the very thoughtful contributions we got from some of the young people in the video beforehand made a very powerful point. If you talk about the spectrum that you care about being from zero government to total government control, and then one can think about those territories in the world where governance is lightest and least, and that would be, the sort of Panamas, the Cayman Islands, the Liechtensteins maybe. These are places where tax avoidance, money laundering, and organized criminal sort of financial arrangements are at their highest. That's really what you offer, isn't it?
It's not true. We are very restricted on money laundering. We don't do any shady business with people that we don't know. And that's one of the things
How do you know?
That's the one thing about Liberland. We do a background check on those people. We try to find the best that we can before we accept them as citizens. So we have 500,000 people that sign up for citizenship, but that doesn't mean we are giving it to everybody. We have only 300 citizens so far, and we want to make sure that those people have no criminal record, they are not money laundering, they are very honest about their belief in freedom. So all of these things have to come together in order to
well,
get
it's easy to say. I dare say it's much less easy to be sure. And also,
you can make
let's talk about
anytime.
other things. Let's talk about drugs, for example. You don't care what drugs people take. I mean, your view is that it's a free Liberland is a free country. They can do what they like. I dare say you're not that fussed about various sexual practices, which in certain parts of the world might be illegal. You're libertarian in that sense. I just wonder whether if Liberland were ever to come to be, it would just be the most criminalized.
Let me make a little bit more promotion. There is an article on page I think 24 in our brochure about how Liberland will manage the drug policy, and we have learned a lesson from a number of countries like Uruguay, like Amsterdam, where the policies on drugs are quite relaxed. It's honestly a trend to decriminalize, not to legalize, but to decriminalize drugs, and it's a right way to go. It's very mind-boggling how much really bad things the war against drug has brought to the world, and it's usually useless. You've got full prisons out of the drug dealers that have smoking marijuana on the street in US. Does it really help anybody to put all these light drug or harder drug users into jail just for example, consuming marijuana? It doesn't. That there is a lot of that I think the world has to improve about the way that the drugs are handled.
It's a heck of an ego trip, isn't it? Sort of coming to events like this, being a president. I know that you got a kick because the hotel recently you checked in and they said, "Oh, we know you. You can go in the presidential suite," and a very nice airline. You walked up the steps. You were going into economy because I know that you care about costs in Liberland. And the cabin crew said, "Oh, you're a president. You can go in the front." I mean, that's great. Maybe it's, frankly, more of an ego trip than a serious proposition.
Not really. This is a serious proposition, but let me say hi to Mr. Felenda, who is running the Air Liberland. So if you ever feel like using a private plane in Europe, you, of course, feel free to use Air Liberland. It was one of the first companies to be established, a part of the beer and a part of these things. And I think it's kind of logical that these things are coming together. Let me remind you about that famous Zappa quote: in order to have a country, you have to have an airline and beer. And I learned that after we already had an airline and beer.
Yeah, well, I hope your pilots aren't mixing the airline and the beer. I'm not sure really want to fly Air Liberland after that. Look, ladies and gentlemen, this man challenges us to think in different ways, and you know, I'm a journalist, I'm paid to be skeptical, but I'm really interested to know whether you guys are skeptical too. We've got to vote, and let's just take, now that you've heard Mr. President make his sort of pitch and proposition, let's just see how we're all feeling about it, and then you can quiz him and ask him some much tougher questions than I have. Here's the question, I don't know if we've got it up, there we go. Here we go. Is Liberland's state model, which we've heard something about today, going to prevail? And you can be positive, you can vote yes, you can say, well, yes, maybe, if recognized by other states, or you can give him the thumbs down and vote no. I'm assuming you've all been told how to vote, because I'm not telling you, because I'm not even sure myself, but I'm sure you do know. Oh, look, there's the place you need to go, simp.sg/voting. Right, Vít, if this were your re-election campaign, it wouldn't be going terribly well.
It's not too bad. I mean, like, we are still winning by 10%, I guess.
It's certainly not North Korea, let's put it that way. A majority, but only a very slim overall majority, say, sorry, mate, this isn't going to work. But
not really, it's 49% right now, 50.
Well, yeah. I mean, the 27% is quite important because the 20. I know you all love an underdog, but let's not get carried away here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for you to quiz a president, and you know, the likable thing about this president is that I don't think he's shockable or takes offense easily. So let's ask him some questions from the floor. Madam, you've got your hand up toward the back, so we'll get a microphone to you, and then we'll come to you, sir. Have we got the microphones? Where are they? There's the lady standing there. Here we go. Right, tell us who you are and give us your question.
I'm Lena, master's student at Georgetown University. So first of all, getting arrested trying to go to a territory doesn't necessarily limit its legitimacy, just trying to go into Palestine. But my question is, what is Liberland's relationship with stateless persons and other countries not internationally recognized, such as Kosovo, Taiwan, Palestine, etc.?
Well, actually, and I cannot tell you the full details on that, but we are upgrading our status internationally, especially in regard with these countries in very short term. So I hope that will run well, and I will be able to publish some great news on the Liberland website within 2 months. But for the stateless people, and we're approaching all refugees the same. It doesn't matter if people come from Palestine or from United States. We are looking at every single refugee the same way. And sometimes, you know, the people in places like Norway suffer even more than the people in some refugee camps. It is unbelievable how people are getting into jail just for not paying their fair 60-70% share in the Scandinavian countries.
I think we need a visual aid at this point. Just fish out of your pocket your passport, if you would. Oh, sure. He's got a very fancy passport. It's well used, but God knows what use it really is. There you go. Now, you've got some stamps in it, but to me, that's about as much use as Monopoly money. What?
Really, not really. The funny thing is that we don't endorse it for using to travel. We actually.
But it's a decoration, really.
It's not really. No, we are using it as a legitimation document when our diplomats are talking to other governments. And right now we've got 3 people flying around the world and talking to different heads of state. And of course they're using that thing as a legitimation of themselves. But on the other hand, we had people that were legitimately using this passport in some countries, getting in and out, getting full visa, which was kind of amazing for me. We discouraged that, but it was still working.
Have you got a date for your first meeting with Donald Trump?
I was the only head of state that went for the inauguration of Trump. It was well covered by Washington Post. So I think they do well. Of course.
I don't know why. I'm kind of thinking you and Donald Trump might get on quite well, but you're right. Come on, let's have a couple more quick questions. Yes, you, sir.
Hi. I'm Eric Gaznarian from ETH Zurich. So if your country is a success, don't you think that will engender all kind of new civil wars around the world when people will try to mimic your story, basically?
No, our story is pretty much a peaceful one. We are not even intending to build up an army. We will, just like Costa Rica or Liechtenstein, we'll have zero army, and we don't endorse any kind of violence. We have never engaged in any kind of violence. So I think we would like to be actually inspiration. And let me remind you about one thing. We had very recently another country created. I don't know how much was it self-induced or how much was the secret agencies of other countries involved with it, but we have ISIS, which is a bunch of murderers basically building up their own state in Middle East, and nobody's really too much bothered about that. But I think, Liberland...
Nobody's too much bothered about it. I think quite a lot of people are quite bothered about it.
But the funny thing is that, I don't know if you noticed, by the way,
I'm really worrying about your foreign policy.
No. Wait. Maybe you should have taken, today, Erdogan has threatened United States to attack American forces inside of Syria. You've got the two biggest allying nations in the NATO fighting each other in Syria. Like, where the hell did we go to?
Yeah, well, let's park that foreign policy for a moment. I want to get a couple more questions in before we go. One on this side. It's time to go to this side. So you, ma'am, you've been very patient with your hand up. Can we get a microphone to you?
Hi, thank you. I'm Susan Graham. I'm an engineer and entrepreneur. And I was wondering, do you see a future where every human on Earth is a citizen of Liberland? And if not, at any time, 2,000 years, however long you want to put it, if not, why not?
Well, again, as I said, Liberland citizenship is something for the people that follow certain criteria. And we don't want criminals, people that are religious extremists, people that have shady background to become members or citizens of this new country. So I don't think it's
Who
fully
defines who's a religious extremist? You?
Well, we are asking for that in the application process. Of course, people can answer.
What is the question? Are you a religious nutcase? Yes or no?
Do you respect religious beliefs of other people? And that's something that, if somebody lies about it, that's a good reason to take away their citizenship. This is something that, of course...
But this is where, libertarianism actually can go right around the circle and become authoritarianism quite quickly.
I think, the great way, and for us, we actually have to be very careful in what we are doing, in a sense that people can very easily run away from Liberland. They can switch back to their own passports. But I think that's actually the future. We'll have lots of options where to go to. And if any Liberland in future becomes an authoritarian state, which people will not like, they will simply move 2 kilometers next door and they will choose a better state to live in.
All right, so, you, if we can get a microphone to you. Yes, you. Yes.
Hello, my name is George. I have a very practical question. So this small piece of land between Serbia and Croatia, am I right? What if Croatia and Serbia resolve whatever differences they had over this land and decide one of them just take it? What's your plan in this case?
Well, first of all, it would be illegal according to international law because we were the first ones to claim it. And second of all, there is an enormous advantage in having Liberland in Balkans. I think if we build something in a type of Hong Kong in there, our economists have calculated that we could bring as much as 1% of GDP growth to both countries. And it's up to us, of course, to sell that great potential to those countries. It's a challenge. I've recently delivered a speech through Member of Parliament in Croatia, and I hope there will be people listening to it, and I think that they slowly start to see the potential that is there.
I'm going to now act as your unpaid, I stress unpaid, Minister of Investment and Trade, and I'm going to ask, there are a lot of corporate titans in this room, people who look around the world for investment opportunities. Who amongst you, men and women, who would be that sort of person with some sort of investment knowledge and some money and capital available? Hands up, anybody in the room who thinks that the idea of investing in Liberland is attractive? Right, yeah, there's quite a few of you. Good. that Nigerian email scam really works, doesn't it? Okay, I think we're almost out of time. Last question. I'm going to give it to the gentleman there with the blue shirt on, waving his hand. There you go.
Hello, thank you. My name is Minu Kim from South Korea, and I have a question about the citizenship, because I'm a law school student in Korea, and I haven't finished my military service yet. So if I actually get a citizenship of Liberland, I don't have to go through the military. And I was just wondering, because you have mentioned in your speech that there are 300 people. So who are these people? Are they all dual citizenship? How does the legal issues work? So yeah.
We don't have a single stateless person before they acquired citizenship of Liberland yet. I'm looking forward to have one maybe in the summer after we get to know a little bit better each other. But of course, it's kind of easy to get citizenship. You just need to help Liberland somehow. We are not requiring you to help with hundreds of thousands of dollars like other countries are. By the way, do you know that UK citizenship is £1 million? So basically I
think that price is going to be going down pretty rapidly.
Well, I doubt it. But with Liberland, it's basically that people help us for a couple of months, or if they just want to pay, they can pay $5,000 at this stage, and they are then fully eligible to get the citizenship. But it doesn't guarantee you that you will get the citizenship. That's something that so far everybody got it, but it's not something that, you know, it's...
I think you two better talk afterwards, because clearly you've got some personal issues. Yeah, well, frankly, we feel your pain, but we can't solve your problem on that front. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've slightly overrun, but that's because it's so interesting. I've interviewed many presidents in my life, but few of them have been, let's say, more interesting and entertaining than you. So I want to... President Jedlička, I am going to give you that honorific at the end. I'm going to thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not quite sure what happens next, if it's lunch or if there's one. Yes, it's lunch. So everybody enjoy a great lunch. I know there's loads of workshops this afternoon. And thank you for being with us this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. And just to give me the flank of